This is the Network Journal Report. I'm Gary Anthony Ramsey, bringing you business stories that are making headlines in your world. Our top stories include: the fate of Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi sends up oil prices as the aging strongman puts up a fight to hold on to power. And not known for its gentler side, the IRS announces new rules to help taxpayers climb out of debt. Census data indicates that despite an economic uncertainty, black-owned businesses are on the rise. Michael Jackson's estate continues to earn millions, but much of those earnings are going towards his outstanding debt. The Ivory Coast sees its largest U.S. buyer of coca comply with an embargo request, and the comic book world mourns the passing of storyteller Dwayne McDuffie. Our top story: revolution continues to sweep through Libya as Muammar Gaddafi holds on to control of his country but loses his grip on several major cities. After bloody clashes with militia forces, Libya's second-largest city, Benghazi, is now in control of opposition forces trying to drive Gaddafi from power. It's estimated that more than 1,000 people have been killed in clashes with forces loyal to Gaddafi. Meanwhile, rumors of the strongman being shot sent oil prices up. The Swiss government has frozen Gaddafi assets, and now Gaddafi blames Al-Qaeda for influencing the young people of Libya. The U.S., for its part, has not ruled out military intervention by Western countries. In a rare sign of leniency, the Internal Revenue Service has announced new rules designed to make it easier for people who are struggling with tax debt to climb out of their hole. Among the changes, the IRS said it would place fewer claims on taxpayer property and would make such liens less damaging on taxpayer credit ratings. Other changes are intended to help small businesses and forgive the debts of more people who are unable to pay. The IRS said the new rules will reduce liens by tens of thousands, but declined to be more specific. Nina Olson, the national taxpayer advocate tapped by Congress to monitor the IRS, was more muted in her response to the changes. She calls them a, quote, significant step in the right direction, but added they are not sufficient to address the problems we have seen. She says the number of liens in the U.S. has surged to 1.1 million in 2010, up from 168,000 in 1999. With millions of African Americans out of work, it seems the lack of jobs have pushed many to go into business for themselves. New census numbers say the number of black-owned businesses in America is on the rise. The number of black-owned businesses in the U.S. shot up to 1.9 million between 2002 and 2007. That's an increase of more than 60% and more than triple the national average, according to U.S. Census data. The number of businesses across the country increased by 18% overall in the same amount of time. Black-owned businesses, which are defined by the government as firms with African-American owners holding a 51% or larger stake in the business, raked in $137 billion in sales and made up 7.1% of business nationwide in 2007, compared to just 5.2% in 2002. In the Ivory Coast, the largest U.S. purchaser of coca from that country has stopped buying the commodity at the request of one of the two men who both claim to be president. Alassane Ouattara has asked for the embargo of coca, which continues to provide funds to the government of Laurent Gbagbo. Ouattara is the internationally recognized leader of the Ivory Coast after a contested election there last fall. Gbagbo, who was the president going into that election, has refused to step down. Fears of an all-out civil war in the region were raised last week after a battle between soldiers who claim loyalty to both sides. Since the death of Michael Jackson in 2009, the pop star's popularity has soared almost to the levels of his peak when he was alive. That renewed popularity has also recreated a multi-million-dollar fortune. According to court records, the King of Pop's estate has generated more than $300 million. The money comes from record sales, a movie, and merchandising. But Jackson's lavish spending and legal problems generated almost as equal amounts of debt. Those same court records show that administrators have used more than $160 million to pay down some of that debt. Jackson died after getting a fatal dose of an anesthesia. The singer's physician at the time, Dr. Conrad Murray, has been charged with involuntary manslaughter in his death and has pleaded not guilty. And finally, the animation world is mourning the loss of a man who for some was a literal hero and stood out in the comic book universe. Dwayne McDuffie has died. The Detroit native was a highly respected comic book and animation writer and was the co-founder of Milestone Media, a landmark company that created a multicultural comic book line that introduced black superheroes such as Hardware and Static. McDuffie had stints working for Marvel and DC Comics, as well as several television series, but his lasting legacy will be Milestone, which diversified an industry in which almost all the characters and writers were exclusively white. For a complete check of business stories that affect your world, subscribe to the Network Journal. You can also feel free to check us out here at TNJ.com. And for a complete check of national and international stories that affect your world, go to OurNewsNow.com. That's the Network Journal Report. I'm Gary Anthony Ramsey.